Hello, and welcome to Raider HQ After Dark. I'm your host, Raider. And today I wanted to put out a follow-up video to my are there certain months that are better for filing your claim, and also what is quality burning. So, this video is specifically made to talk about how to, if you were going to file a claim now in July, August, and September, how could you do so to maximize the likelihood that your claim will not fall victim to quality burning? And I've got another one of my handy dandy demonstration tools here. This is PowerPoint, black and white. I'm kind of a vanilla kind of guy here, but so how to survive the quality burning months is the overall summary of this. So the first thing that you want to do is, at least my suggestion, is to limit the number of conditions you are claiming. And the reason why you want to do this, and there's no set amount, but there technically is. The way the quality and production works for production is you get a certain number of points per disability. I want to call them contentions. That's what we call them. So every time I call a disability contention, just know that I'm saying the word disability, but just from the Raider side of it. So you get a certain number of points for the number of contentions that you have, but you start to get diminishing returns, like less points per additional contention after 6. So 6 is the Goldilocks zone. Anything less than 6 is great. 6 is great, but you start losing points per condition. Now, it takes it the same amount of time to do additional conditions, but you get less points for them. So you can kind of maybe see why if you did a 20 contention claim, your VSR, your rater, and your authorizer might go, well, hell, I don't want to touch this one because I can get twice as many points if I do 3 contention claims than if I did a 20 contention claim. So it's once again, the system is rigged to prioritize less contention claims, to the point that the VA itself even prioritized 5 contention or less claims within the last 4 months. So that's why we see a little bit of the backlog increasing for these higher condition claims and nobody really wanting to work them unless they're high days on station. That's another motivating factor as to why somebody might, do the claim that they normally wouldn't care about. The next category is limit the number of claims filed. I cannot stress this enough for multiple reasons. I think from a neutral standpoint, the more claims you have, the more people are touching it. And that's not necessarily a good thing if we're talking about 10 to 15% of the VSC or the claims processing employees in a quality burning environment, right? So the more people that touch it, the more likely you're going to get somebody that burns your claim to do just whatever they need to do in order to get their production points, and they don't care about the quality of the work that they're putting out. So another factor here that I would say about more claims is it leads into complexity. And the reason why it does, especially for original and non-original, or I should say non-appeal claims. So anything that you're filing a 526 on, if you have an open claim that you say filed today, 2 weeks from now, that claim is still open and you file another claim. Well, guess what? We just add those 2 claims together, but the person that touches it has to now start over and do all the development actions for that new claim, which means you're exponentially, on a good day, typically a claim should have 3 VSRs touching it. One during the pre-examination phase, one during the examination phase, and one during the post-examination phase. Every single time you have somebody that you file a new claim, you could have another set of 3 VSRs touching that. It is bad. It is just, it's not good for, how you would think that the same people that had it beforehand would touch it, but that's not the way it works typically. So this also lends into the complexity of having to do, like when you go further down the assembly line to the rater side of it. If I have to track down all the effective dates for everything that you claimed and nothing's the same, and if I was that kind of rater where I needed to burn my quality in order to increase my production, I'm just going to sham-a-lama ding-dong that thing into whatever it needs to be and not care about getting a quality error. So I'm going to deny it all. I'm going to grant, like if I can grant, I can grant. If I'm going to, if I've got to look hard to try to do something and I'm that crappy rater, that Blue Falcon, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do whatever I need to do, the quickest, Occam's razor to get to the end result that I need to get to so I can get my points in a short amount of time. And short amount of time for maximum points equals shoddy work. So you don't want to make your claim more complex than it needs to be. And if you add multiple 526s onto it, you are exponentially increasing the amount of research that the rater, the VSR, everyone has to do. So how do you resolve that? You make it concise, right? Like, let's say you filed a claim now. And let's say that, in a month or so, the sleep apnea, changes are going through and you need to file another claim. Well, that's a claim of necessity, okay? And that's fine. We're fine with that. Just make it as concise as possible. Try not to have too many working parts in your claim. Don't claim it due to 97 different things. Like, I think that my sleep apnea is secondary to my ankle. My sleep apnea is secondary to my foot. Like, please don't do that. Like, because we'll have to get medical opinions, separate ones, for each individual thing that you do with that. And it literally will just, disengage the VSR for the most part. Like, unless they're really into their job, you're going to disengage them. That's an all-day claim right there. So, and it's not bad if it's true, right? But there is some due diligence that you could do on your end by going to the doctor, maybe asking them to narrow down what could be causing your sleep apnea. So that way you're not throwing spaghetti at the wall. Because if you do that, you are just potentially opening the door for somebody to burn your claim. And can you win on appeal? Sure. Can you potentially win in a higher level review? Sure. Can you delay your own claim for no reason? Sure. So it's, I'm not condoning, quality burning at all, but I'm saying it happens. And if you do things that make your claim kind of a more complex situation, not a pain in the ass, but like a more complex situation, it's going to literally cause them to potentially burn your claim. And if you have more people touching it, the odds just keep going up and up and up. And that's not a good thing for you, and it's not a good thing for your claim. So number 3, if you're submitting non-VA records as pivotal, critical things that need to be part of your claim, you'll need to fill out a VA Form 21-4142. Now, this is the release of information form. You'll have to sign this. This is you giving permission to the VA to go out to that doctor per HIPAA compliance and say, hey, look, the VA contractor has authority to get these records. And the VA Form 21-4142 Alpha, this is where the problems typically happen. You have to put on there the names, locations, dates of all the providers that you want to make part of your claim. Now, I'm just going to share this with you. If there's any kind of discrepancy in there, like if, let's say you got the address wrong, they're going to try to call. The contractor who pulls these records will try to call, they'll try to contact. If they can't get in touch with the provider or if they can't locate the provider because you put a 3 instead of a 5, these records will not be part of your claim. And also, if there's any kind of headache to it, the VSR is more likely to burn your claim in order to just say, look, I tried. They're not going to go the extra mile if they're not inclined to. Now, there are staff members that go the extra mile every single day of the week. It does not matter what month they're in. That's true sometimes, but that's not true all the time, or else we wouldn't have, quality burning to begin with. But so this is important. Like, if you do this triple check on your forms for private medical records, you're doing yourself you're giving yourself the best opportunity to not have your claim burned at this phase with the VSRs. Now, another thing that you'll want to do is I always suggest submitting, like getting a copy of these forms yourself and submitting them with your claim. Now, you might ask yourself, why do I want to do both of these actions? Well, sometimes you'll get these finicky raters that go, I think the veteran's withholding something from me. I'm not 100% sure that the veteran, is giving me the full accurate stuff. The reason why you're doing the 4142 is to give whatever that crazy person is, the crazy rater, full access to your records so they can see that you're not withholding anything, which is, that's not the norm by any means, but I do know some raters that are weirdly like that. Now, and the reason why you want to submit the documents with your claim submission is because if somebody burns your claim at this phase, you still want to have the records there so that way at least the rater can go, whoa, 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 why didn't we get an exam for this? Or, whoa, 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 I have everything that I need to rate. So you just want to do these two different things for that reason. I know it's a really bizarre kind of ask from me for you to do this, but you would not believe some of the personalities that are in the VSR community and the rater community and how some of them gatekeep for the weirdest reasons. And yeah, I'll maybe do a video on that in the future, but it's just bizarre. So at a minimum, okay, at a minimum, if this is too much for you, like let's say you have 1,000 records from your private, providers, at the minimum, I would say submit a document that gives a problem list or diagnosis list for the specific things you're claiming. This is to satisfy element 1 for the current diagnosis. You would not believe how many people I've had to deny because they say something like, I have a knee condition, and they don't provide me anything else to go on. They don't have any medical record showing a diagnosis, or they do, like they filled out the 4142 alpha, 4142 and the 4142 alpha, and they said, yeah, no, I'm diagnosed in those records, but they didn't provide the diagnosis. At the minimum, if you get burned at this phase, if you get burned at this phase of the process, then you don't have element 1. You said you did, but they burned you, and now you don't get an exam and you get a quick denial. And then you'll be transitioned to having to appeal it, at which point you have to supply even more evidence than you originally would have had to have done in order to get an exam. So this is a practice that should be every single time that you claim. You should be submitting, number 1, the medical diagnosis with your claim. So something that says it, a legitimate clinical provider that gives you a diagnosis. The other thing that you want to do is you want to also, with that, give the lay symptoms that you were experiencing to kind of tie that in for the examiner. So that way, you have it to where, you can also speak to the severity of it. So that way, if the rater gets it, they can say, okay, that's not really matching up with what the examiner said. The veteran said, they can't move their back at all, or however it goes. And I don't know, for that specifically, that's kind of a you thing, and it's kind of depends on the evidence at hand. But these are things that really do help get your claim across the finish line. And that's what you want to have happen, is you want to get that exam. So let's move on to number 4. Okay. Now, I know that there has been a lot of talk about private DBQs and private medical opinions and the scrutiny that has been put upon them for waste, fraud, and abuse. And I agree with the concerns. So the community, the content community at large, their concerns should be real, because internally, the quality review teams are putting out there that, to look for these DBQ mills, to look for any kind of waste, fraud, or abuse, to really honestly almost nudging the rater community to be like, if they're 100 miles away and you can't find cause, then that's a potential fraud. So we should just treat it as fraud. So how we get beyond that, Now, a lot of content providers have put out, to submit a VA form 21-4138 explaining why you chose the provider you did. This is some of the best advice that you could get, is because you need to tell them, hey, look, I went to them because, my private or my VA doctor wouldn't fill out my DBQ, and I want to go with the private option. I'd rather not go to a vendor. I would rather have somebody take a few days, review my evidence, and this is the evidence that I provided them. Also provide them with the evidence. That is another thing that you want to do. Now, another thing on here is have the provider on the DBQ itself list the NPI number that they have. Okay? All their information, the phone number for where they work at, the NPI number, the address of their business. Now, this one right here is something that not many people talk about, but it is something that within the VSR and Radar community we are looking at, is we will actually pull up the NPI number of the provider and see if that matches up with what they put on the DBQ. Now, why this matters. There are a lot of providers out there who do not keep their NPI index up to date. Okay? They will, like, I've had it to where I've had to deem the DBQ insufficient because the NPI said that they were a student at the time versus they're not a student anymore, right? And it's just one of those things where the VSR, the Radar, if they can find especially on the VSR side, this is primarily for VSRs. If they can find a reason to burn your private DBQ and order an exam because they get 0.43 points for sending a claim RFD, ready for a decision, to the Radar, but they get 0.7 points for a single condition examination. So they're incentivized to actually find, if they can, fault in the DBQ and deem it insufficient. So reviewing this before you finalize, before you submit it, and I'm sure that everyone has to pay for a private DBQ. It doesn't matter, because you have to do, they're called, assessments. You have to have a diagnostic, or well, sometimes it's diagnostic, but you can have a clinical assessment done, and those cost money. There isn't a world that we live in that they don't cost money. So save yourself the hardship of just wasting that money and make sure that the NPI number is up to date. On a separate VA form, 4138, respectfully request. Now this, every time that you speak to the Radar and you speak to the VSR, always be respectful. I've had some hilarious transactions with 4138s that were not such, but they were funny. I mean, like, knee slapping funny. But respectfully request that if the VSR or Radar find that the DBQ or medical opinion is insufficient for rating purposes, to not just reach out to the provider, but to reach out to you specifically. Okay? And the reason why you want to try to do that is you want to try, because you've asked for it, maybe somebody that is not trying to burn their quality, right? They've got their numbers are good, and they're doing the right thing. They're dialed into doing the right thing. Maybe they will catch it and go, well, wait a minute, this is not insufficient at all. Or it is insufficient, and I'm going to tell that veteran so they know how to get in touch with their examiner and sort it out. So that way it gives you, the veteran, the opportunity to, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, I guess, and try to make it to where you keep these private DBQs and medical opinions sufficient for rating purposes. So this is one of the things that I highly recommend for everybody to do. And then I think that's about it for that. So just to summarize, the quality burn is a real thing, and can you submit claims during the quality burn months? Yes, you can. It requires a little bit more due diligence on your part, and it's not a guarantee that not doing it will be a bad claim, or doing the things that I said will be a good claim. It's just, trying to do as much as you can to give yourself the highest likelihood of getting a fair shake in front of the VSC, the Veteran Service Center employees. So that's about all I got for you today. If you have any additional videos that you want to see or any kind of recommendations, please let me know and I'll try to do it. I'm a little hoarse. I don't know if you've heard the last few videos. I've been kind of, like that, but I've been having a sore throat lately. So I'm going to try to put out a video tonight, another video tonight, and I did get some advice on thumbnails, so I'm going to be working on that tonight. So anyway, thank you if you watched the entire thing, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and Raider out.